So I was leaving school, and I called him up. And so he said, I said, hey, what is it like leaving? You left, so I want you to tell me what it's like for me to leave Michigan State early.
Magic didn't just change the game, he changed the energy. Before him, basketball was strategy. After him, it was theater, smiles, no-look passes, showtime. But underneath the dazzle was a killer, a 6'9" floor general who wanted to dominate every inch of the court. And to do that, he had to go through the toughest, not the flashiest, not the loudest, the toughest. Picture this, the Forum, 1987. Magic drives baseline, that signature smile still painted on his face as Larry Bird steps up to meet him. The crowd holds its breath. This wasn't just basketball, this was warfare in sneakers. See, Magic Johnson wasn't afraid of contact. He welcomed it. He smiled through elbows, trash talk, and triple teams. 5 championships, 12 all-star appearances. But there were 6 names that made even Magic elevate. 6 men who didn't just play defense, they disrupted rhythm. They forced Magic to dig deeper, pass quicker, think faster. These weren't casual matchups. These were heavyweight chess matches, mental warfare disguised as basketball games. And when Magic talks about toughness, he doesn't mean strength alone. He means intelligence, grit, the ability to shift the balance of the game without even touching the ball. Some made him sweat, others made him bleed. All of them made him better. And when the lights were brightest, when the Forum was packed, and the stakes were heavy, these are the players Magic Johnson knew could flip the script in an instant. This is the list, the 6 legends who earned his respect the hard way. But before proceeding, please take a second and subscribe. And like this video, it will be very motivation for us. There were rivalries, then there was Bird versus Magic. To Magic Johnson, Larry Bird wasn't just an opponent. He was the mirror, the measuring stick, the ghost he could never outrun. They entered the league together, won Rookie of the Year together, carried franchises on their backs and the NBA on their shoulders. But every time Magic looked across the floor and saw number 33 in green, it wasn't just another game. It was war in a tuxedo. Bird wasn't loud. He didn't dance or flex or pound his chest. He just buried you with jumpers and stared through your soul while doing it. For Magic, who thrived on tempo and movement, Bird was like a stone in the river, unmoving, unshaken. You couldn't rattle him because he already knew what you were going to do. They met in 3 NBA Finals, 84, 85, and 87. The Celtics took the first. The Lakers answered with the next 2. But to say Magic ever felt comfortable would be a lie. Every possession against Bird came with a price. You couldn't switch off. You couldn't relax. One slip, and Larry made you pay. With a pass you didn't see, a shot you couldn't contest, or a dagger you thought he'd never take. Magic once said Bird was the smartest player he ever faced, but it wasn't just IQ, it was cruelty. Subtle, devastating cruelty. Bird didn't just score, he humiliated. He'd whisper your defensive flaws before torching you with them. He'd call his shot, then hit it off one foot, falling sideways, with a hand in his face. And when you came back down the floor, he was already baiting you into your next mistake. For most players, trash talk was theater. For Bird, it was precision warfare. Magic never backed down. He matched Bird with charisma, speed, and vision. He had the smile. Bird had the scowl. But underneath, they were identical. Obsessed with winning, allergic to weakness, wired for the moment. That's what made every matchup feel biblical. The 1984 finals were especially brutal. Game 7, Boston Garden. Sweltering heat, no air conditioning. The parquet floor was a furnace. Bird walked in and declared, "This is our game. This is our court." Then he dropped 20 and 12 and walked off a champion. Magic, on the other hand, crumbled. Turnovers, missed free throws, and regret. That loss haunted him. So in 85, Magic came back with vengeance. He controlled tempo, carved up the defense, and clinched the title in Boston. First team ever to win a finals on that floor. And for Magic, Bird wasn't just a rival. He was the one player who never blinked. It wasn't about physicality. Bird didn't jump higher, run faster, or lift heavier. But he played like he knew your secrets. And in those moments, those tight fourth quarters where legacies are made, Magic always had to wonder, what's he thinking? What does he see that I don't? That uncertainty made Bird terrifying. Even now, decades later, when Magic Johnson builds his all-time list or names the players who made him great, Larry Bird is always there, usually at the top. Because Larry didn't just test Magic's skills, he tested his identity. And for the most electric player in NBA history, that was the ultimate challenge. Magic Johnson never feared competition. He thrived on it, battled Bird in college, dismantled the Sixers in the finals, survived the bad boys' brutality, and came out grinning. But Michael Jordan was something else entirely. Not a rival, not a successor, a reckoning. When they met in the 1991 NBA Finals, Magic still ruled the league. 5 championships, 3 MVPs. Showtime was fading, but the crown still sat on his head. And then came Jordan, faster, meaner, and sharper than anyone Magic had ever seen. Game 1 went to the Lakers. The veterans executed. Magic ran the show. But in Game 2, Jordan unleashed something that rewrote the script. He scored 33, dropped 13 dimes, and floated through the air like the laws of physics had been called off. That mid-air switch-hand layup? It wasn't just a highlight, it was a message. Magic wasn't just facing a great scorer, he was facing a shift in reality, a player who fused ballet with brutality, who didn't just control games but consumed them. He's not trying to win, Magic muttered on the bench. He's trying to end us. The Bulls won 4 straight. The Lakers couldn't adjust. Magic couldn't breathe, and by the end, there was no doubt. This wasn't a passing of the torch. It was a takeover. What Magic respected most wasn't the skill, though that was terrifying. It was the mindset. Jordan didn't coast, didn't concede. Every possession was a mission. Every cut had purpose. Every glance carried warning. He didn't ask for respect, he extracted it. They weren't enemies, but they weren't peers either. Jordan didn't rise alongside Magic. He rose through him, stepped over the era of Showtime, and declared a new one. And Magic, even in defeat, recognized it. Decades later, when asked who the greatest was, Magic didn't flinch. Michael Jordan, he said. No one else comes close. Because Jordan didn't just change the game. He ended an era. And for a player like Magic, who was the era, that kind of force wasn't just rare. It was unforgettable. Some rivalries are built on skill. This one was built on scars. Isiah Thomas wasn't the biggest guy Magic Johnson ever faced, but he might have been the most dangerous. Listed at 6'1", he played like he was 7 feet of venom, a smiling assassin with ballet footwork and a boxer's grit. Every dribble was a dare, every smirk a challenge. Magic and Isiah started as friends, tight ones. They shared laughs, family dinners, even a pre-game kiss on the cheek. But friendship doesn't survive a war zone. And once the Lakers and Pistons found themselves on a collision course in back-to-back NBA Finals, the bond began to crack. In 1988, it was a masterclass in will. Game 6. Isiah drops 25 points in the third quarter on a severely sprained ankle, hobbling, grimacing, refusing to sit. Magic watched, stunned. He wasn't just witnessing greatness, he was being hunted by it. The Lakers barely survived. Game 7 came down to free throws and fatigue. Magic got the ring, but not without paying a price. Isiah had pushed him further than anyone in years, and Magic knew it wasn't over. In 1989, Detroit came back sharper, meaner, and hungrier. The bad boys swept the Lakers. Magic tore his hamstring, and even though he was sidelined, he could feel Isiah's footsteps. The Pistons weren't just champions, they were kings of physical control. Isiah had engineered it all. By then, the friendship had withered. No more laughs, no more kisses, just tension. On the court, they guarded each other with surgical aggression. Off it, they stopped talking altogether. Magic never spoke badly about Isiah in public, not then, but the air around them was icy. It took nearly 3 decades before they sat down and mended things. What made Isiah so unforgettable to Magic wasn't just the points or passes. It was how complete he was. Crafty, clutch, cold-blooded. You couldn't rattle him. You couldn't outthink him. He wasn't built to lose. He was built to last. Most guards feared Magic's size and speed. Isiah didn't blink. He cut through that fear like glass through smoke. And in the process, he left Magic with a scar that took decades to heal. Because to Magic Johnson, Isiah wasn't just a rival. He was the one who made the game personal. Some defenders want to stop you. Dennis Rodman wanted to dismantle your rhythm. To Magic Johnson, Rodman wasn't just disruptive, he was disorienting. A ball of raw tension who never stayed still. He'd crowd you, bump you, claw for space that wasn't his, and still beat you to the rebound. Rodman didn't arrive in the league with polish or promise. He came in as a wiry wild card from southeastern Oklahoma State. No jump shot, no post moves, just relentless motion and a sixth sense for where the ball was going. And Magic noticed early. When the Lakers and Pistons met in the 1988 NBA Finals, Rodman was already causing trouble, off the bench, flying into passing lanes, chasing Magic across screens like a windstorm with a mohawk. Magic still prevailed in that series, winning in 7, but the seed was planted. By the time they met again in the 1989 Finals, the balance had shifted. Rodman had blossomed into a full-blown pest, now a Defensive Player of the Year and a certified game wrecker. He didn't just guard Magic, he harassed him. Full court, off ball, between whistles. Every bump was intentional, every shove. a distraction. Magic was used to setting tempo. Rodman didn't let him breathe. He'd tangle your legs on a curl cut, nudge your elbow mid-dribble, and if you complained, he'd grin like it was all in your head. What made Rodman different wasn't just effort, it was calculation hiding inside the chaos. He wasn't out there to just contest shots. He was there to unravel offensive plans, bait legends, and turn beauty into mayhem. For Magic, who built his legacy on precision, Rodman was an unrelenting glitch in the system. He never outscored you, never needed to, but he made sure you left the game thinking about him. And that, to a superstar, is the ultimate win. Before Magic Johnson was the Showtime architect, before Michael Jordan rewrote gravity, there was Julius Erving, the prototype. But for all the flash and flight, Erving didn't just float through games, he imposed. And for Magic Johnson, that made him unforgettable. Their battles weren't rooted in bitterness. This wasn't hate, it was something more profound. Pressure, the kind you feel when you're up against someone who helped define the path you're trying to walk. By the time Magic entered the league in 1979, Dr. was already a myth made real. An ABA icon, a Philly savior, the man who made the air a weapon. But it wasn't just the highlights that stayed with Magic, it was the poise, the leadership, the sheer demand Erving placed on your focus, even when he didn't have the ball. You couldn't relax when Dr. J was near, because he didn't come at you with brute force. He came at you with angles, movement, anticipation. He didn't crash into you, he moved past you before you could react. Their most iconic duels came in the early 80s, when the Lakers and 76ers became the league's defining rivalry. They met in 3 NBA Finals in 4 years, 1980, 1982, and 1983. In 80, it was rookie Magic who stunned the Sixers with a 42-point masterpiece in Game 6 after Kareem went down. But Erving answered in kind 2 years later, dropping 21 in Game 6 to force a decisive Game 7, though the Lakers ultimately took the series. Then came 1983, and this time, Dr. came back with Moses Malone at his side and swept Magic's Lakers right off the court. That sweep wasn't just defeat, it was a message. The old guard wasn't ready to leave quietly. For Magic, facing Erving meant facing your own standard. There were no mind games, no elbows, no posturing, but there was always excellence. Even the losses carried dignity, because with Erving, the challenge was pure. You had to be great just to stay in the conversation. Years later, Magic would call Dr. the classiest competitor he ever faced, and you can hear it in his voice. It wasn't just admiration, it was awe, the kind that never quite goes away. Because when you compete with a legend who came before you, and he still makes you sweat, it doesn't sting, it sharpens you. He wasn't flashy, wasn't loud, didn't headline sneaker deals or dominate highlight reels. But ask Magic Johnson, who gave him fits on both ends of the court, and he'll name Sidney Moncrief. For most fans, Moncrief is the name that slips through the cracks of 1980s lore. But for the players who had to face him, he was unforgettable. A two-way menace, a grinder with grace, the kind of guy who didn't just guard you, he haunted you. Magic stood 6 feet 9 inches, ran the point like a quarterback in a chess match. Most defenders bounced off him, or tried to beat him with speed. But Moncrief? He studied him, matched footwork with angles, anticipated every pivot. If Magic moved left, Sidney was already there. If Magic looked to post, Moncrief leaned first, always just a step ahead. It wasn't a physical advantage, it was mental. He didn't talk trash, didn't bait with antics. He just competed, possession by possession, until your rhythm fell apart. And what made it worse? He didn't stop on defense. Moncrief averaged nearly 20 points per game during his prime with Milwaukee, and he did it on high efficiency while often guarding the best player on the floor. That kind of balance, elite scoring and elite perimeter defense, was nearly unheard of at the time. He won back-to-back Defensive Player of the Year awards in 1983 and 1984, the first guard in NBA history to do it. And it wasn't because of some flashy steal numbers or block totals. It was effort, timing, commitment, the willingness to shadow legends for 48 minutes. To Magic, Moncrief was a puzzle, one he never quite solved. There were no heated exchanges, no bad blood. But every time the Lakers played the Bucks, Magic circled one name, because he knew what kind of night it would be. Hard, relentless, technical. It wasn't about headlines or drama. Moncrief didn't play for the crowd, he played to win. And when Magic thinks back on the toughest matchups of his career, it's not just the famous names that surface. It's the ones who demanded the most from him. The ones who made him uncomfortable, the ones who didn't need fanfare to bring fire. That's why Sidney Moncrief makes the list. He didn't rattle Magic, he refined him. If you liked this list, check out my next video. Larry Bird names the 7 players he hated. It's a wild one. And also, do not forget to like this video and comment your thoughts. I will love to hear from you, and subscribe to this channel for more.